Hey, it's Andrew Huang. I've got some fun music and also some music production and sound design tips to share with you today because I recently made a track using only soap products, and I think it turned out pretty good. This was for a commercial that Dial hired me for, which is awesome. I'm a big fan of hand washing, and they also wanted to sponsor this video on my channel, so thank you to Dial. Let me show you what I came up with, and then I'll break it down for you. Also, they asked me to be the little announcer voice in the commercial, which is just a really cool thing for me. Come on, that's so fun. Check it out. New Dial Foaming Hand Wash Concentrated Refills. Count on clean. So every single sound in the track you just heard came from this. This is Dial's new Concentrated Refills starter kit, and it comes with a bottle and some soap refills. Very easy to use. You just mix this with water and then you reuse the bottle. So compared to getting a new bottle every time you run out of soap, it's a 95% reduction in plastic. And then because there's less liquid being transported from store to store, it's actually also an 85% reduction in carbon emissions, which is pretty cool. So let me show you how I made this track. Here's my project. So let's start with the kick drum. This was just hitting the starter kit box on a table. Originally it sounded like this, but I lowered the pitch a little bit and then also ran it through some EQ. One other little trick here is that I duplicated the same sample onto a second track. This one's turned down 2 dB, and it also has an additional EQ, dipping some of the mid-range frequencies. And I'm just doing this to create some subtle differences between a louder, more accented kick and a lighter secondary kick in our drum pattern. We've also got this sort of snare clap sound in our drum beat, of course, and this is just 2 different instances of hitting the bottle, tapping or flicking it. It's also sometimes layered up with me squeezing the bottle, but that bottle squeeze stuff I also kind of threw in as their own little accents here and there. And then as the track builds up, I add some more claps. So I'm using the box being opened here. I really like how there's a swell into the clap. That's something that's really nice. It just propels the momentum of the beat forward. Then later on, an additional clap sounding layer gets layered in, and this is opening the soap packet, these little guys. But yeah, just a nice light clap sound. That one's my favorite one. I would use that one on its own in like a lo-fi track or something. Next sound, pumping the soap bottle, both dry and with soap in it. This was perfect for sort of a hi-hat shaker sound. Then there were a handful of sounds that I spread out more sparsely just to keep the beat a bit more interesting. So every once in a while we get these little box percussion accents. There's one spot where I did sort of a lighter opening of the soap packet where you can kind of hear each of the perforations pop. I used opening the box again, but with a lot of reverb to create kind of a transition impact sound. Inverting the soap bottle when you're mixing the concentrate with water. That was a good occasional percussive sound. Also, it's kind of funny. I think this was the whole reason why I got this job, because you're mixing the soap. And so they were thinking like, we're remixing the soap. These are the ways that I get gigs. Screwing and unscrewing the soap bottle cap was a great sound. I mean, it's nothing too special, but in context of the beat, it's just similar to opening the box, giving that kind of propulsion to the beat, having something swell into the next sound. It's just fun. And you know, I've seen drummers now starting to do this on their live kits, like swiping a stick across a hi-hat. Baller move, sounds so good. All right, we've also got these filling the bottle with water sounds. That just adds a little rhythmic texture in the background. I did have to warp this. Originally it sounded like this. And so I just tightened up each of those little droplets to be on beat, and then also in beats mode here using the preserve transients selection and having this envelope turned down a bit. It just makes it snappier. So without shortening the envelope, then I'll dial it down. So you can just get stuff sounding much more percussive with that. Now moving on to the melody and the chords and the bass, on this track I covered all of that using one single note. Just blowing across the bottle to get a tone, and I use it at first just raw. Well, touch of reverb, but I could have recorded it in a cave. You don't know. Oh, you edited that in already? Okay. So I brought that note into a sampler and started messing around playing it from a keyboard and came up with this line that I really like. A little later on, I end up blending that into another version of the same instrument that has distortion on it. So I was trying to show a progression here where you start with the original sound, then you see me play it on a keyboard, then you hear the sound get processed a bit more. Just trying to find that balance between making a connection to the source material, but also making the music sound good. So this distorted version of the instrument, it's the same thing, but just with 2 of Ableton's amp effect on it, and then I'm playing lower and in octaves. So without the amps. And the reason I have 2 in a row, it's subtle, but I think you'll hear it. So with just 1 amp, that one's doing most of the work, but I wanted there to be a little bit more high-end aggressiveness to it. So I put this second one on with slightly different settings, and it's just at 4% wet. It just adds a bit of this top-end buzz that helped this instrument cut through the mix. And then I'm using our same note again, but looped so that I can sustain different notes with it to make chords. So that is literally every sound that I used to make the track. It was a really interesting challenge because I had to make it flow with what Dial wanted to do in their commercials. And there were a few different cuts that we made. So, you know, starting with the box and then opening it and then having an empty soap bottle, unscrewing it, filling it with water. All of these steps were sort of the story of the ad, and I was trying to shape the music around those elements coming into play, which turned out to be a great creative limitation. You know, it forced me to have to use certain sounds at certain times, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks again to Dial. Check out the new foaming hand wash concentrated refills. They come in some different fragrances. You can reduce your plastic waste, and you get to be clean. It says on here that this will make me clean. May not improve your music production skills. All right, folks, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.